The days passed in peace. Yet that peace was but a fragile mask. The knowledge accumulated over hundreds, perhaps thousands, of years of the Auren family's history lay hidden deep within the tower. Valthor spent more time buried in ancient libraries than seated on his throne, for the people under his protection prospered visibly, governed with justice and little need for his constant presence. Valthor Arden knew too much. He had uncovered whispers of secret societies, rumors of a dark dome that would one day suffocate Auren with lies and shadow. In silence, he worked to gather allies against this unseen threat, but the enemies, hissing voices and serpent-like eyes, tolerated no defiance. And on that evening of crimson clouds, with the sky stained like fresh blood, a cowardly plot fell upon Venth. There was something in the air, a heavy stillness that even made the village dogs fall silent. Kale felt it first, standing at the doorway of his house, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the clouds thickened too quickly, as if pushed by some unseen hand. A messenger arrived at the tower, a tall man, cloaked in dark fabric. He moved with quick steps, his boots kicking up dust, and his left arm swung unevenly, as if it pained him. He stopped before the fortress gate, his face partially hidden beneath the shadow of his hood. His voice, when he spoke to the gatekeeper, was sharp as a blade.
"Hey guard, where is Sindar Toreth? I need him now, it's urgent and he'll want to hear this."
The guard, a young man with a patchy beard, hesitated, his eyes narrowing at the stranger. Official messengers did not arrive without warning, much less at nightfall, and the silver emblem stitched onto the man's cloak, a serpent coiling around a sleeping eye, was not a symbol he often saw.
"I'll fetch him,"
the guard replied, his voice firm yet hesitant, sending a boy sprinting up the stone stairs toward Sender's quarters. Toreth appeared moments later, his armor clinking with each firm step, the sword sheathed at his side. His graying hair was tied back in a short tail, and the deep lines etched into his hardened face seemed even harsher under the faint light of dusk. He halted before the messenger, his brow furrowed.
"What brings you here, sir? We have had no news of official visits for many suns. What is the urgency?"
The man offered a thin smile, his eyes gleaming with malice, and handed over a letter sealed with black wax.
"Just this, Sindar. My work is done."
He turned, his cloak swirling like a shadow, and disappeared into the dimness of the trail before Toreth could ask more. Upon breaking the seal, Toreth read in silence, his eyes widening for an instant. The letter trembled in his large hands, and he crumpled the paper with a low growl.
"Guard,"
he called, his voice sharp.
3 men to the tower now. The Valthor and the lady are at rest. Protect them. I won't be long."
He rushed to the stables, his long strides echoing against the earth, and mounted his horse, a brown stallion with a flowing mane, moving with the grace of one born to the saddle. But before he could ride, a shrill noise tore through the air, followed by a heavy thud that made the horse rear and whinny. Toreth dismounted, his armor creaking and limiting his movement, and returned to the gate. The guard lay on the ground, a thin line of blood trickling from his throat, dripping onto the drawbridge that guarded the fortress entrance. The boy from before was sprawled nearby, his eyes wide in shock, frozen in place. Toreth understood at once, a distraction. With a roar that echoed through the hills, he rang the alarm bell, his hand already on his sword, but the sound returned hollow, no one answered. The Sindar dashed across the bridge, his boots hammering against the wood, and entered the tower's hall, his heart pounding like a war drum. What he saw froze him, bodies strewn across the floor, guards with their throats cut, blood still warm on the stones. The air reeked of iron and death, and fallen torches rolled along the ground, casting shadows that danced across the walls. Masked assassins, swift shadows wielding poison blades, moved like specters, and the massacre was nearly complete. Some guards still fought, swords clashing desperately against quick daggers, but they fell one by one, their bodies dropping with hollow thuds that echoed through the hall. Toreth charged forward, his sword sweeping in deadly arcs, cutting down several enemies with blows that shattered skulls and helmets like dry bark. He felt a sting, blood trickled from a wound on his arm, and darts pinged off the plates of his armor, marked with the proud griffin of House Auren. He stormed up the tower stairs, each step a thunderclap beneath his boots, his breath heavy but steady. The door to Arden's chambers stood ajar, the frame splintered as if forced open by brutal hands. Toreth advanced, his eyes narrowed against the gloom, but he felt dizzy, a brief moment of disorientation. Poison, the thought flashed through his mind, making him falter. A treacherous blow came from behind. A spear pierced his thigh, the metal ripping through flesh and muscle. He fell with a muffled cry, tumbling down the stairs, bones cracking like dry branches, his vision blurring as he heard Valther's final scream echo from above, a short cry, cut off by a gurgling sound that died too quickly. Darkness swallowed his eyes, and he lost consciousness, the cold stone pressing against his face. In the village, the bell echoed, a hoarse sound that ripped the villagers from their routines.
"What's happening?"
cried a woman in the square, dropping a basket of clothes that tumbled across the dirt. Children halted their games, their dirty faces turning toward the tower, while men dropped their hoes and rushed to their doors, searching for weapons or answers, confused and afraid. But there was nothing to be done. The assassins showed no mercy and intended no loose ends. The houses surrounding the village were already igniting in an unnatural pyre, with bright arrows falling like shooting stars, creating a deadly circle of fire. The attack had been planned with cruel precision, and the village was now surrounded by soldiers clad in black armor and archers armed with flaming arrows. The soldiers bearing the golden griffin on their chests reacted swiftly, forming shield walls and trying to pull the civilians out of the line of fire. Some stumbled from their homes still fastening their corselets, caught completely by surprise. From the hills, shadows descended like a wave, the gleam of black armor reflecting the fire already licking the farthest rooftops. Arrows tore through the sky once more, embedding themselves in thatched roofs and wooden walls, and within moments a deadly ring of flames swallowed Venth. Villagers ran screaming toward the center square, an open field with no shelter, as the acrid stench of burning wood and flesh filled the air, choking their lungs with thick smoke. Around the city, shield walls clashed against the black wave descending from the hills, a sea of screams and clashing metal, as they struggled to buy time to organize the defenses. But they were being attacked from every side. Lysara acted quickly. She had been in the kitchen, kneading bread, when the first scream shattered the silence of the house. Kale was beside her, cleaning a knife he had used to cut herbs, and he saw her eyes change, the soft green hardening like stone.
"They came for us,"
she whispered, dropping the bread and rushing to gather cloaks and a leather satchel.
"You must run, Kale. To the woods, to the Heralds. Find the wardens. It's our only hope."
Her voice trembled, but her hands were steady as she piled supplies. Kale opened his mouth to protest, but the sky lit up with burning arrows, and the ground shook under the thunder of heavy boots echoing through the alleys. And they came. Torches blazing, screams tearing through the air, houses aflame, blood forming a crimson river down the narrow streets. Soldiers in black armor advanced, swords slicing through the air with cold hisses, cutting down those who fled for help. A woman fell at the doorway next to theirs, a blade buried in her chest, her young son screaming beside her, until he was torn from her arms and thrown into some kind of cage. Lysara pushed Kale toward the back window, a small golden harp trembling in her hands.
Go.
She shouted, turning toward the door that was already shaking under heavy blows. Her fingers plucked the harp strings, and a clear melody sliced through the chaos. A pure, strong song of the Lume that made the soldiers freeze the moment the door burst open, their eyes glazed as if trapped by a spell. Kale hesitated, his lungs burning, then jumped through the window, but in the desperation of the moment he fell among the flowers, feeling thorns pierce his arms and hands. The notes of the harp quickened, becoming rapid and shrill, and he heard the crash of pots, pans, and candlesticks flying through the house, striking the soldier's armor as if hurled by invisible hands. One of them fell with a muffled cry, his helmet crushed by a blow he never saw coming.
If winds turn to steel and the sky spits flame, there is still Lume where the heart beats its name. If the earth should break.
Kale rose, his heart constricted, his feet aching to run back to his mother, but it was too late. He felt it when the air changed. The scent of ash and iron dissipated for an instant, as if the world itself held its breath. Then came a chilling whisper, snaking through the house like invisible fingers, making the flames waver. The wood creaked, the windows cracked, and then a blade of wind, sharp as glass and merciless as fate itself, sliced through the air and found Lysara's chest.
There's a name in the wind that memory keeps, and secrets in stones where silence sleeps. There's strength in the hand.
There was no sound of impact, only a sigh, a lament that dissolved into the current that pierced her. Her blood did not stain the floor. The wind carried it away, along with the emerald glow of her eyes in their final instant. She fell, releasing one last lament with her sweet voice. The earth roared and answered her call, splitting with a silent scream, swallowing her and the soldiers alike, leaving behind only the echo of the wind, which now seemed to sing her farewell.
I fear not the night, nor the hush it brings, for its voice no longer belongs to me.
The battered body of Torith, barely regaining consciousness, was dragged in chains behind a horse as black as night, beneath the screams of the village. Kale, hidden among haystacks piled near the house, saw his father try to rise, his hands clutching the earth with such force that the horse halted, its hooves pawing restlessly. Torith dragged himself a step forward, his broken leg failing under his weight, his eyes searching for the house where his family had been. But there was nothing, no house, no family in sight. His hands clawed at the ground, trying to pull his body in that direction. But a spear was driven into his back, and his blood stained the earth he had sworn to defend. His bloodied armor was then hoisted onto the central mast where the banner of Valthor Arden once flew. The soldiers laughed, a cold sound that sliced the air, and they raised the armor as a cruel trophy against the burning sky, the firelight dancing across the shattered metal, illuminating the griffin now stained with blood. Alone, with the sound of flames and the stench of blood behind him, Kale ran to the stables, skillfully mounting Epona, the echo of his mother's music mingling with the howl of the wind, the first lament he would carry forever.
So let those who come when the embers dim hear that a herald once sang with him. Let them know through silence and sin, the Lume still burned even then, even then.